non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Yeah, we were, we're 10th in rush per game, 8th in pass yards per game, 1st in interception percentage, 4th in sacks per play, 11th in first downs per game, 7th in yards per game. So we just got to do better in the red zone.
Oh, the wink.
The wink.
The wink by Mike Zimmer. Who was he winking at? That was a very,
maybe PR?
cocksure grin sort of wink at the end of that.
Ordinarily,
stats.
PR's off to his left.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good
Standing
point.
off to his left. They're not sitting to what would be his right. That's a good question.
We need the all 22. We need the all 22 of the media session there. Yeah. By the way, I've got some stats here too. So among sports radio station top 20 markets, we are number one in YouTube subs, number one in podcast listens, number one in hot takes per episode, and number one in best transitions to Judd Zulgad ad reads too. So, doing pretty well.
Did somebody say transition? Let me tell you about Surly Brewing right now.
Let me tell you about TCL TVs here, because if you're watching Purple Daily on a TCL TV, we thank you for supporting the show. TCL is one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands. They've got a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. And boys, this is Purple Daily. Presented by Surly. Daily Vikings entertainment, and we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. So you haven't been getting much sugar-coated discussion this week on the show, and if that makes you uncomfortable, it's okay. There's other places you can go for more of a positive spin on what happened on Sunday night. But this, every Thursday, is the State of the Offense discussion. We'll get to Random Viking of the Week, where Declan is on a 4-game winning streak.
Impressive.
I think we should just start with the 4 key offensive stats here, if you guys are down for it.
Mm-hmm. Let's do it.
Because I think these will create some discussion, tell a story, and lead to potentially some outrage here. All right. So these are 4 key offensive stats. I cheated on one of them. One of them's more of an organizational stat, but we'll get there. So, number 1, and these all have categories. This category is bizarre offensive approach. According to ESPN Stats and Information via our friend Courtney Cronin, Vikings play-action usage has dropped from 8th in the NFL. They were the 8th most play-action-heavy team last year, and now they're 29th. The Bills, Ravens, Cardinals, and Chiefs, among other teams, are all throwing at least a handful more play, between 3 and 5 more play-actions per game than the Vikings are. And to add to this mix, so they're not running play-action, relative to the rest of the league, they're not running play-action nearly as often as they were last year. Also worth mentioning, average depth of target on throws, Vikings rank 31st, just ahead of Jared Goff and the Lions. So their average depth of throw, and Kirk Cousins, is just shy of half of what, or I should say just above the halfway point of what their Sunday opponent, Baltimore, is doing, pushing the ball down the field, an average of 11 yards per throw. Vikings are at 6.5. Mm-hmm. So they're not running play action like they were last year. It's a lot of check down Charlie. We saw it on Sunday night. Every third down basically was short of the sticks or short of the line to gain. So just bizarre offensive approach is stat number 1.
Let's start with the play action, because that is dictated from game planning and upstairs. So the checkdowns can be debated.
It's a little of both, right?
Scheme, you don't sit there on Wednesday saying, you know what, I want Kirk to do more check down. I really enjoy it when check downs. In fact, Mike said at the outset, I think of his press conference on Monday, that the first play of the game against the Cowboys on Sunday was supposed to be a deep shot and got checked down, and that's dictated, clearly by coverage and also how Kirk perceives the situation. But the play action to me is the head scratcher here, because we know that it's effective. It's been great. And why you would, I mean, I thought when they scaled back at the start of the season that we were talking about, okay, they're not going to use it as much, but let's say they're going to be like 10th or something, right? Like 10th, 11th. But you said 28th.
29th.
Or 29th. And to me, that is unfathomable how that has gotten away from them as just sort of being stuck in the back pocket now when Clint Kubiak's father, Gary, used it so effectively with Kirk last year. And the last thing about Kirk is, and this is where I don't get it, Kirk Cousins is at an age and point in his career where it's not like you're going to teach him a ton of new tricks. Like, yeah, play action work, Kirk, but you know who you have to watch on film more? Lamar Jackson, because we want to see you run. You know, Kirk Cousins is who he is. He has his strengths. He has his weaknesses. And to play up to his strengths has always made a ton of sense. And you have Dalvin Cook. And you have a good run game. So why you would abandon it, I have no clue.
It's, yeah, I mean, it would be one thing. And by the way, another one to add to this mix is the Vikings, according to Courtney's article, spend the most time under center in their passing game. Well, just in general, of any team in the NFL. It's very throwback, right? It's like all the jokes people make about Mike Zimmer and being a mid-'90s football connoisseur. Like, that's what they did in the mid-'90s, right? They were under center with a running back and a fullback with big shoulder pads and maybe a neck roll. And
loved it.
And
neck roll.
Sorry, every time we say big shoulder pads, neck roll, we probably have to hit that. And so, like, it would be one thing if, all right, we're gonna deviate from play action, but it's gonna be shotgun, spread it, down the field throws. Mm-hmm. But like when you're getting away from the thing that you did the best the last couple of years, which is play action. Play action was the Vikings were a great play action team because you have to account for Dalvin. Kirk's comfortable in play action. So why would you take that away schematically and not replace it with something dynamic?
But why
That's what doesn't make sense to me.
Why would you take it away, period? Like, at all? Ever?
It is dynamic for the Vikings.
It works. It works. Now, the one thing about shotgun is Kirk is not as good in shotgun. So dropping back doesn't bug me as much. What bugs me is you found a formula that works, and now you're like, we're going to shelve that. Like, what are you thinking Kirk is going to do better than what he did when you used a system that he was effective at his age? Like, Kirk is a mold, is a guy that you want to basically mold into who you want, find what works, and then hammer that.
Yeah.
This isn't, he's not 23. It's not like Kirk Cousins is much, it's 2021 now and Kirk Cousins is matured and we don't need play action as much. And play action is, I love it. It's a great idea. Like, what's the downside?
And it's not like, you might think, well, okay, what about game flow? Are they just like, are they trailing by 20 points? It's like, no, their games are all very close, right? Like, have they played any games that
that's the whole point.
Aren't close?
That's the problem.
So it's not like, oh, we're down by 20 points, so we can't run play action anymore. Pretty sure they've been, I'd have to go look, but like, I think every game has been close. Even the losses, like the loss to the Browns was 14-7 or whatever for most of the game.
And what, if you're going to take shots, which you should at times, especially with this core of receivers, what shots would you take that you wouldn't benefit from calling play action off of?
Yeah. Dude, I don't know.
That's really weird.
I feel like the Vikings might need some self-scouting. Maybe they'll have an opportunity here at some point to maybe there's another bye week or do a little self-evaluation.
You just had yes, exactly.
All right. So the first key stat was more scheme and approach, right? The second one is about Kirk Cousins here, okay? And so I'm going to throw you the stats, and then I'm going to ask a question. And we're going to categorize this as Kirk Cousins Hall of Fame bust. Let's start carving it, because as of today, here's where he ranks all time. History of football. Professional football. All time, okay? He's third all time in completion percentage. Right behind Drew Brees and just ahead of Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. He's 7th all-time in passer rating, just ahead of Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Steve Young. And he's 10th all-time in pass yards per game, just ahead of Kurt Warner, Aaron Rodgers, and Dan Marino.
Okay.
And so here's my question to you guys, all right? So you've just heard, like, he is sitting with these ridiculously amazing, like, basically the best quarterbacks of all time, historically, right?
Yes, sir.
And yet, as of Sunday, his teams, Kirk Cousins' teams, his win-loss record or the teams that he has quarterbacked, however you want to frame it, are now below 500. 10 years, they are now below 500. The other quarterbacks I just mentioned, right in and around just below him on these lists, are a combined 450 games above 500 with like 15 championship rings. Why the disparity?
Well, I think it's simple. I think it's because if you look, at least I will speak from his time since he got to the Vikings. I think if you look at the way that he is asked to or plays the game, or probably, to be fair, a combination of both, the statistical success is based on the conservative nature. Completion percentage ain't hard when you look deep to your receiving core down the field and you think to yourself, I can't throw that ball.
It's a little risky.
Too risky. There's Dalvin. Hey, Dalvin. Hey, Madison. Hey, Conklin. Hey, Rudy. So if you look at what he has done here, he's completed a ton of passes, lots of checkdowns, short, dump offs, which is fine. So yeah, I think the problem is, and that obviously drives up things like passer rating and completion percentage as well. So to the eye test, if you watch it, I think you see exactly why. I think you see what the formula is. And you know what? I will be very fair here and say it's probably a combination of Kirk and the coaching staff too. So it's not just Kirk. But when Kirk had a coordinator who came in and said, I'm going to treat you like a $35 million man. John DeFilippo did. Put him in shotgun a ton, said, let's open this puppy up and let's have some fun. The quarterback didn't play as well, and the coach fired the OC.
I feel didn't the quarterback get off to a really hot start? Wasn't that the year where he got into shootouts against Rodgers and the Rams, right?
But ultimately, he didn't like it as much. He didn't like the style as much. But the point is, eye test again, I think tells you exactly why. Because you can build your counting stats up. Like I feel like in this town, we ripped Maurer for like his, like if you really watch Maurer, it's a bunch of doubles. It's not home run. He can't hit for power. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. And I always felt that was completely unfair because Joe Maurer could bleeping hit.
He could hit and he could get on base, and he was also dictating. He was a great defensive catcher.
But we wanted more splash, right?
Yeah.
Like we wanted more splash from Joe. Well, I think Kirk is a living embodiment of what our problem with Joe was. Like, look at the lack of splash.
But the difference was Joe actually drove winning with the things that he did well. Like getting on base is the most important thing you can do to move the chains offensively in baseball, right? Like Joe was like, oh, the numbers aren't as good as we want them to be, but his impact on winning was better. Kirk's the opposite.
Right.
His numbers are amazing, but his impact on winning is less.
But I believe that what the fans perceived and didn't like about Joe is actually the truth about Kirk.
Yeah.
So like we look at Kirk and say, oh, it's fine. Look, it's absolutely fine. Look at those stats. And we don't do what we did to Joe, which was say, well, we want more. We want more power. We want more of this. We want more of that. We want World Series championships, which we did. Yeah. But I really think that those are the problems when it comes to Kirk. And just again, to be fair to Kirk, I will say it's probably coaching too. It's not just all Kirk.
Yeah, but it's also that's part of the problem with Kirk too. Over the course of his career, it's like at every stop, everyone wants to point to everything other than Kirk. We're going to point to coaches. We're going to point to defense. We're going to point to offensive line. It's like, are you telling me that all of the great quarterbacks in the NFL just had everything's perfect all the time? Or were they driving these things to be better? Like Tom Brady goes to Tampa and the offensive line gets better because he's a great leader. And and a couple young receivers get to the next step in their careers. It's like Bruce Arians has done a ton of interviews and podcasts and stuff since winning the Super Bowl, and he said, when Tom Brady came in, the biggest thing that the team needed was to understand. It was years of losing and mediocre culture for 20 years in Tampa Bay since they last won that Super Bowl. And they brought Tom Brady in, and Bruce Arians has said a million times, we brought him in to teach these guys how to be championship caliber, to show them what it's like. And again, Tom Brady shouldn't be the bar by which we compare everyone to, because he's the greatest quarterback in the history. It's hard to replicate. But I think my question for people that continue to hammer these stats, look at these stats. Every day it's look at these stats. There's Vikings PR, Vikings bloggers, and I would say and I'm as big of an analytic stats nerd as you're going to find. Put those aside for a second. We all watch the games. We all watch Aaron Rodgers. We all watch Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Pat Mahomes having a bit of a rough season, but Pat Mahomes for the majority of his career. When you watch the games with your eyes, clock ticking down, against winning teams in prime time, do you really think that he belongs in the same sentence as the best quarterbacks of today and the best quarterbacks of all time, which is where he ranks with some of these stats? You're telling me if you had, all right, your job is on the line and you can pick 5 quarterbacks or 10 quarterbacks you get one game or one fourth quarter, who's your guy? You're telling me Kirk's in that conversation? But with the stats, he is. But use your eyes, use your brains.
But if you watch the games too, it's not a surprise that with the stats, he joins that group because it's a passing league now, and Kirk has a lot of success passing the ball, but it's the passes. It's the types, right? So both of things make sense. His statistical success makes perfect sense, but it's also a risk-adverse type of approach. And, he completes a ton of dump offs and short passes and once in a while goes deep. But nothing about Kirk, if you watch him, shocks you. Nothing, the statistical success doesn't shock me. And the lack of success ultimately in winning games throughout his time here does not shock me. Both of them to me are not surprising. But that's the problem is you do have the Kirk stands who are just bound and determined to say, the stats are good. So, you should shut up.
And Sunday was such a great example too. Just all these other names that I've mentioned in these categories with Kirk, right? Drew Brees, Mahomes, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Kurt Warner, Aaron Rodgers, etc. It's when there's 37 seconds left at the end of the first half, is there any confusion with any of those quarterbacks about who's running that show, who gets to call timeout? Are those guys even thinking about looking to the sideline for a play or for approval to do something?
Right.
No, they're just doing it because they're great leaders.
Right, but this also comes back. When Kirk leaves here, the epitaph on Kirk is going to be had all the physical gifts. This is a mental conversation. Because when Kirk and what's frustrating too, and this is the tempting thing about Kirk, is there have been times where we've seen him take the mental cap off, and it's oh my gosh, he can do that. The final drives against Detroit and Carolina in OT, those are damn impressive. Yeah. And that's the frustrating thing.
But people act like that's there it is. Oh, there it is. See, look, he's amazing. The season doesn't end in October.
Right. But it's not. But what makes the Kirk conversation difficult is the reality is, as much as we want to say the offensive line's not good, he didn't have this, he didn't have that, the coaching didn't do. Kirk's biggest enemy is Kirk Cousins' brain. His physical gifts are not debatable. He has physical.
But look at the NFL now, though. There's about 12 quarterbacks that have far greater physical gifts than he ever.
Right,
had.
But think if he was wired like Brady. Tom can't really move, but if he was wired like that. But what happens with Kirk, and I have no idea why, is it seems to go in and out. It's like how can I compare this to? Oh, I know. An AM radio. It's like an AM radio, and you're driving and you're listening to a station in Minneapolis, and you're just about into Wisconsin, and it starts to fade, and then it'll come back for a while. It'll come back for a while, and you're like, it's back, and then it'll fade again, and then it's gone. That's the Kirk mentality of because it's not There's no reason why at the end of the first half he should have these problems, besides the fact that he doesn't have the mental capacity to completely just take control.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe he needs to loosen up before the game. A little Surly Furious. That's what I might recommend. Maybe sneak some of that in his Gatorade bottle.
Sneak some of it. I'll bring it right in. Surly Furious, Minnesota's favorite. You know what? The country's favorite IPA. It is the best. In fact, hold on a second. I hear something coming. Hold on. What is that? It's the weekend. Oh. The weekend is almost here. And if the weekend is just about here, that means it's time to go to your local liquor store today, because it's a football weekend, to stock up Surly Furious. Don't settle, get surly.
Thirsty Thursday, too.
I think Declan was thrown by that. Well, who is coming? What is that noise? I see.
It's early, like,
last night.
Here?
I thought of that.
Dog. Like a dog. Like, oh, what?
I thought of that last night.
Who's that?
Shh, what is that? Oh, it's the weekend right there.
It's the weekend. I hate weekend.
Also, hey, hello to our friends at Federated. Federated's all about risk management and helping your company with protecting its bottom line, protecting its employees, protecting its quarterbacks. No, they don't really help football teams, but there's a full list of industries Federated protects at federatedinsurance.com. Find out why they've been in business over 100 years helping your business. Federatedinsurance.com, and remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours. All right, Rick Spielman cackling from his job-secure suite over at Twin Cities Orthopedic Performance Center. How fast do you think Rick Spielman ran to the Wilfs via phone, text, however, after that Sunday game, to throw everyone else under the bus to start preparing to keep his own job?
Third quarter.
Guys, I mean, listen, we got it. These guys got to go.
This isn't going well. These fans know what they're watching. And it's got nothing to do with Rick.
Oh, man. All right. Let's get to key offensive stat number 3 here. And the category is quite simply Garrett Bradbury.
Go.
Garrett Bradbury, in his third year in the NFL now, former first-round pick, has allowed more pressures than any other center in the NFL this year and in the last 3 years. He's also taken the second most penalties of any center in the NFL. He has 5 penalties so far this year and 17 pressures allowed. Your thoughts on Garrett Bradbury 2.5 years in now?
Didn't work. It doesn't work. It didn't work. It won't work.
And it also, like, as long as it's not working, it's minimizing the upside of Kirk Cousins, right? Like, if you can't give him a viable starting center in the NFL, you're not seeing the best of Kirk Cousins.
And short of a very, very small list of QBs in this league, it's going to hurt the next QB too. There's no reason to stick with this. He is a failed first-round pick, and I know that hurts Rick.
It's true.
He takes a lot of pride in my draft picks are special, and this is a major bust. A first-round pick taken at a position where you ordinarily don't take these guys. I mean, centers, second round, third round, but not ordinarily first round. That's reserved for tackles and sometimes guards. So I would say that there has to be a realization very soon that Garrett Bradbury is going to continue to be ragdolled. I mean, there's nothing that's going to change this. He's not going to grow now. I'm sure he's tried to gain weight. And you know what, too? And this stinks. It's too bad. He's just not that good.
Yeah.
He's just not that good. So I am a little bit surprised that they didn't have a plan B that went beyond Mason Cole, who I think is a better guard than center going into 2021. But they need something else there, and Garrett Bradbury is not it. And Phil, how many times, like, you've read those type of stats about Bradbury since he got here? And the first year, we're like, well, he's a rookie.
He's young.
Change. Right, he's young. Second year, you're still like, okay, I guess he's still, but this isn't good.
Yeah.
It's time for you to stop what you're doing and reading us those stats, because Garrett Bradbury is no longer starting for the Vikings.
So how much do you guys then... Speaking of Rick Spielman's cackle, okay. And again, I mean, free agency is tough because it's everyone always thinks, well, why didn't you sign that guy? Oh, maybe that guy didn't want to. Maybe that guy wanted to live in California. Maybe his wife wanted to live in somewhere else. Whatever. So it's not always. You can't always just blame a team for not signing somebody. But You know, I look at one of the best offensive linemen on the market was former Packers center Corey Linsley, who signed with the Chargers. It was a $62 million contract over, I want to say, 4 years. And his average cap hit is going to be anywhere between $13 and $17 million. So he becomes like one of the 5 highest paid players on pretty much any team he signs with. The Vikings wound up clearing enough cap space to sign Patrick Peterson on a 1-year deal for $10 million, and then Dalvin Tomlinson, and like they cleared out space by cutting the Kyle Rudolphs and restructuring the Neil Hunters, and they did it to beef up their defense. And they went into the season saying, all right, year 3 of Bradbury is going to be the year. And obviously they whiffed. And again, this is all like hindsight 2020, but if you could have moved off your mistake after year 2, I mean, 2 years for the most veteran offensive lineman drafted in that first round, right? Like he was deemed like the NFL ready guy. That was the biggest compliment of him, right? He's just going to step right in.
Yes.
So 2 years of being really bad as a pass protector, I don't know how much more time you need for a guy that he wasn't 19 years old when he came in the league. So if they could have looked in the mirror and said, yeah, you know what, it's been 2 years, it's not working, we got to win a Super Bowl now. Would they have been more aggressive in a different world with a Corey Linsley, for instance? Corey Linsley, by the way, has allowed 4 pressures all year so far for the Chargers. He's been excellent.
In a different world where you could have a center who's actually competent. So there's two directions to take this conversation that are interesting, and both involve decisions made by the Vikings versus the salary cap. All right. The first one is this one. Dalvin Tomlinson. Shamar Stephen stinks. So Dalvin Tomlinson is undoubtedly an upgrade there. And this is probably where Mike is getting tire tracks on his back now from Rick. But my guess is that Rick is going to say, I want to sign a offensive lineman. And Zim said, got to improve that defense. And the marquee signings the past 2 years have been whom? Michael Pierce, who currently has missed the past 3 games, I believe, because of an elbow injury. And Dalvin Tomlinson, who it turns out is more of just a guy than like some dominant run stuffing or, he's just a guy.
He's a good player, yeah.
He's a good player, but they moved him to the 3 tech, and he's probably a nose tackle. And the last time I checked, he was signed largely to stop the run. And the last time I checked, the Vikings, I believe that the Cowboys were the first team that didn't exceed 100 yards rushing against the Vikings this season. And that's largely because they decided young Cooper Rush could throw the ball against these cornerbacks. Yeah. And so the first part of this discussion says, okay, why didn't you invest that in a guard, a center? Like, why did you sign a decent guy who really hasn't made a substantial difference in the middle of the line, especially for the reason that he was signed? That's question one. And then the second question and topic, Phil, gets back to what we've talked about a ton, which is this is the price of Kirk Cousins not adjusting his contract and of Kirk Cousins' cap hit, which is Kirk, unfortunately, if we have a bad draft pick who we have to play, your contract doesn't allow us to say, okay, Bradbury, sorry, bad pick. We'll go sign a guy, who can play center and protect you. We just don't have that money available under the cap because of what you make. But I would go with Tomlinson first. I think the Tomlinson signing should be dissected more. Was that the best use for that player? Because you got to be right there. Was that the best use?
And he's been good, but
money.
It's about.
He's not that good against the run. He's been good. I think his PFF grades actually.
You're right.
Getting pressure are better, and that's not why he was really signed.
Yeah, and it's kind of about like evaluating where your team's at. And last year the Vikings had like a top 10-ish offense. They were a big yardage offense, and they just needed to score more points in the red zone and whatever. And their defense, they were trying to get their defense from bottom 5 up to respectable. And I get the logic. Like from Mike Zimmer's standpoint, we can't have that happen again defensively. And they have been better defensively by and large this season. But like what's the thing that's going to make you potentially elite at something?
Right.
What can you hang your hat on? And because they let the offensive line, like they basically didn't improve their offense. Like it feels a little better, but then the Cowboys game was a big setback. And now Pro Football Focus has the Vikings offensive line in terms of pass protection rated 31st out of 32 teams after that Cowboys game. So they're kind of right back to square one. And I contend if instead of bringing in Patrick Peterson and Dalvin Tomlinson, Xavier Woods, who's been good. Again, these guys have been good players. I'm not saying they're not good players, but what if you would have brought in Corey Linsley or traded for a guard or whatever it is, and you had 5 reliable guys up front now, including Christian Darrisaw, as a rookie. Where would your offense be? Because we know that when Kirk has a clean pocket, he's comfortable, he can dissect. It's not realistic to always have a clean pocket, but it's just we kind of called this from the beginning that, I don't know, putting all your chips on defense just feels like a push to 9-8. So I don't know. Here's the fourth one. All right, this isn't really a key offensive stat. I'm kind of cheating the system here. This is more of an all-encompassing franchise mediocrity category, and it's from our friend Vikings Couch on Twitter. 43% of all Viking seasons have been between 5 and 8 wins, and another 25% have been 9 or 10 win seasons. So how about that? 1 in every 4 seasons is 9 or 10 wins. So that's carry the 4. So basically, 7 out of every 10 Viking seasons are between the 5 and 10 win middle ground. So they're very rarely a dumpster fire, but they're also very rarely like the 11, 12 plus wins you need to play home playoff games, home NFC championship game. He also has tracked that the Vikings' average first-round draft slot is 15th, which is smack dab in the middle of the pack. Yep. And they've never drafted a quarterback above 11th overall. And here we sit again. A lot of people are like, oh, they're going to win. Now they're going to lose the rest of their games. They're going to win 6 games. No, they're not. They're going to win like 9 games. That's what's going to happen. And that's where my anger is. My anger isn't that they're garbage. My anger is that they're always in the middle. They're always mid, as the kids would say. So this is really interesting that they're just kind of always between 6 and 10 wins. Yep. Oh, how do you get out of it? That's the question. Are you content with it? Just get 9 wins and see what happens in the playoffs.
The problem with the Wilfs is I don't think, in fairness to them, that they truly are content with it, but I don't think they know how not to be content with it, if that makes sense.
Well, they don't want to hit the nuke button, and I don't think you have to, but it's hard when you're not willing to bottom out. It's hard to sort of get unstuck from mid.
Yeah, and I mean, do you have? Because this league is weird, because I feel like if you do things right, that you don't have to go on some long stretch of being bad. Like the Detroit Lions are just incompetent. It's their own fault. But I feel like in this league that you could definitely bounce back. The question becomes, do you have the right people in place to do that? And my feeling is starting with the top of the football decision makers with the Vikings right now, the answer is no. I don't think that you do. So like I don't feel like this is a discussion about, well, you're going to blow it up and you're going to be bad for 4 years, and then the 5th year you're going to improve, and the 6th year you're going to win a Super Bowl. I think that what we've seen is this. I think Rick Spielman, to a large degree, and Mike have done everything they can possibly do to take their shots. Like, they've played the game, and at times it was fun. But I don't think there's a category of the game now to go up to for them and say, let's try this one. Let's rethink our strategies.
Do they even really know what a championship and a perennial championship contender looks like? I mean, it's like they're so immersed in fringe,
right? And do they know what a championship contender looks like now? They might have at one time, but now
the 98 Broncos.
Right? Like if you look at how Mike plays, right? Like he has a template. Like there's a blueprint there, but I feel like it's dusty and moldy and like in this drawer right by me, written on a pad of paper. And the rest of the league now is like, we've upgraded, we've got our computer programs and we've got this and we've got that. And
Mike's flip phone guy.
Yeah, and Mike's like, damn it, you don't understand. I bought these pads in 1998 from the local store down the street, and I still haven't used them all. And I don't think they know how it looks. I don't think they know how
pens are out of ink.
The legal pad. I bought these big pens and these legal pads, and damn it, I'm going to use them all before I'm done. So yeah, I don't think they know what it looks like, and I don't think that they can be expected at this point in time to pivot to a place where we say they get it now.
Pivot for all you friends. Switch. So those are your four key offensive stats from the Vikings after that loss to the Cowboys.
Thanks
looking
for that
ahead
uplifting
to
episode,
the Ravens.
Phil.
I mean, what do you want? I'm not gonna. If you want blind optimism, there are places to get that. That is not what we are going to bring you this week.
I'm going on my app right now to listen to some of that because I'm so disappointed. I want to hear why the Vikings are going to be fine.
Before we get to random Viking of the week, tell the audience why you're fine losing a bunch of weight these days, Judd, and how they can do it too.
It's all because of my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers. 240 pounds a month ago. The last time I weighed in, 223 pounds. And here's the best part. I'm not done yet. I'm going down to 200 pounds, and I want you to join me. It is a program that is easy. It's a program that's effective. And most important, if you're like me, it's a program that gets you healthier. First 10 weeks, free. That's right. First 10 weeks are free. So check them out, livia.com or 855-GO-LIVEA, livia.com. Tell them Score North and Judd told you to check them out. It's a program that absolutely works for me. It will work for you. Feel good, have your clothes fit good, which is very nice. I am now into jeans that didn't fit a few weeks ago.
Skinny jeans, Judd. That's right.
It's not skinny jeans. I will never wear those.
Slim fit Zolgad.
Stop with that. Livia.com.
Slim fit white belt.
No,
Judd's on fire.
I'm not going. I will never wear skinny jeans.
It's time for the random Viking of the week here on Purple Daily.
Declan's been hot.
Where Declan and his fill-in Ross got one of these as well, but it's a 4-week win streak for our executive producer Declan Goff.
So he won week 1. I won the next 8, so it was 8-1.
Yep.
And now Declan has narrowed that gap by quite a bit.
8-5. Declan, how are you feeling after like the 7th or 8th straight loss?
I was not feeling good.
It just takes one.
There was a self-scouting, there was a coaching change, and now all of a sudden we're playing well, and we're playing up to our strengths. We did. We changed.
I didn't know you fired your coach.
Yeah, we
fired. You didn't change me that.
Fired our quality control coach.
Tell me that you changed.
No, not the head coach. Just the quality control coach had to be changed, and a change of philosophy had to happen. So no more under center, a little bit more play action. Things were good. Now we're good.
Are you guys ready for this one here? Random Viking.
I don't know anymore. I'm shook.
Judd's lost.
As the kids say, I'm shook.
All right, well, let's start here. So here's how it works. I'm going to give a series of clues. You guys each get 3 incorrect guesses before you are eliminated. Just shout your answers as you feel like you want to. And you can always ask me questions as well, but I can decide if I want to answer them or not.
Okay.
For the good of the game. All right, this random Viking of the week hails originally from Castro Valley, California. Played college football in the Pac-12. This random Viking of the week was a 2-sport athlete in college. And played for 5 different NFL teams.
2-sport athlete.
This random Viking of the week. I'm just going to get to this clue now. I was going to save it, but it's too good. He once appeared on Hard Knocks and said, quote, after the team has finished stretching and returns to the locker room, actually the quote is in the second half here. This is just a paragraph. After the team has finished stretching and returns to the locker room prior to kickoff, he hastily leaves the venue to use the restroom at a gas station or restaurant so he can have complete privacy while he moves his bowels. He went on to say, quote, I pore over our schedule the day the NFL announces it, and I use Google Maps to identify a restroom near each stadium where I can unload a mud dragon and gather my thoughts before the game starts.
A mud dragon?
I don't remember this at all. I thought this might stir a memory. Oh my gosh.
I have a new word I'm going to use.
A mud dragon.
I've never heard that before. Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
All right. So that was what he said on Hard Knocks.
Why don't I remember it? I don't remember that at all. Okay.
This random Viking of the week made a Pro Bowl as a Viking.
A Pro Bowl. As a Viking?
As a Viking. He was a Pro Bowler.
5 teams.
I believe that was the only Pro Bowl he made, actually.
Okay.
He was college baseball teammates with 2 of the greatest of all time in that sport. One of them's a Hall of Famer. The other one probably should be, but isn't because
he played
reasons beyond his playing.
So he played with a steroid guy, and he's a college. So his 2 sports were college baseball and college football, and he's in the Pac-12. So it's got to be a decent.
He once led the Vikings in tackles.
Oh, God.
For Dennis Green.
Okay. That's
In,
going to limit me.
in tackles for Dennis Green.
Declan, you got a guess?
No.
So
I will
so
say
we're
that
talking about-
I think when it comes to his NFL career, his playing career is not what he's most famous for. Most people would note another part of his career as the thing that they recognize him for.
Like another career?
Within football.
Or within football.
Mm-hmm. Like head coaching, perhaps.
I got to guess. Jack Del Rio.
Judd guesses Jack Del Rio. The Mud Dragon himself
That's
is correct. Yes.
He unloaded.
Bravo, Judd.
I had no
Bravo, Judd.
idea.
Hilarious, dude. Mud
Why don't I
Dragon.
remember that?
I don't remember that
I
either.
always
So
thought Jack was a jerk, so that's my. The media loved Jack. I've told you the story. I was a young. I was doing the soft feature for Viking Update, and so I would drive down to training camp for a day and like talk to a guy or two to write the features. Del Rio had just signed from the Cowboys, and so. And this is back in the day where you could go into Gage Hall and just like wait for guys to come through the lobby.
yeah.
And Del Rio gets done with lunch and he is walking through. And I'm like, Jack, and I'm like 23 or 22. And I'm like, Jack, I'm blah, 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 Viking update. So clearly it's going to be a puff piece.
Oh.
And he's like, and Del Rio said, I didn't play well in the first preseason game. And I wouldn't represent myself well right now if I talked.
I can respect that.
So
I
I'm
can
not going to
respect
talk in a preseason game. You're a jerk.
I can respect that. I think he's a little dense, maybe a little bit of a.
I didn't play well in a preseason game, so just
maybe he just didn't want.
I mean,
to talk
I'm going
to
do as soft a feature on you as you could possibly. He didn't, but that's the point. Is I'm going to. If I'd been Star Tribune at the time, I could totally see that.
I don't know. Maybe he just doesn't like you. Maybe that's what
He
it is.
didn't like me, but my point is, don't tell me. Don't. Oh my god.
Jack Del Rio. Yeah, I'm guessing that was probably. I don't think the Jaguars were on Hard Knocks, so I'm guessing it was the Raiders that were on Hard Knocks. He
No,
coached
it's probably the Cow. It was. Oh yeah.
He was with the Reds. It must have been the Raiders. Dude.
So
he had a
was
12-4 season with the Raiders.
Yeah.
so he would scout as a head coach. He would leave to go.
I don't know.
I think you might be right.
I took it as head coach, but
Oh my god. Can you imagine having to leave?
you're just at the frickin' Shell gas station down the street. Jack Del Rio walks in 45 minutes before kickoff and
How on earth would
inches a
you
loaf.
How on earth would you think that
God.
a potential gas station bathroom is preferable to a stadium where like you're in the locker room?
Well, that's the funny thing. It's like, yeah,
Which
I
has
would feel like
doors- which is
the
nice
locker
bathroom.
room would be, yeah, you could just go into one of those nice, but then I suppose your other option could be go in the concourse, but then there's too many people. But there's also people at the gas station.
Right. So
And
why
the chances of that bathroom being comfortable. And then the whole thing, like, okay, what if there's traffic? How do you get back? I don't know. It's very
Very curb.
Very weird.
What if there's traffic?
Anyways, that's a very
You're honking
football
your
thing
horn.
to do.
I gotta go.
So Judd is now up 9-5 on Declan here, all time in Random Viking League. Judd gets his mojo back for the first time in about a month. But that's a wrap on this episode. Daily Vikings Entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. And they got a fun game coming up against the Ravens. I'm looking forward to this game against the Ravens. I think they're going to show some life.
So
they are basically 6-point underdogs.
Keys is very excited about this game. He was up early today,
not.
crunching number. You're not?
No, they're going to get run out of the building.
We'll see.
All right.
They're going to run out of the building, literally.
We'll see. All right. Plenty more to come this week on Purple Daily. Thanks for hanging out with us. Please click subscribe on our YouTube channel, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.